Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer not coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. Instead, downtown Atlanta, Georgia, SEC Media Days 2025. We were here in the College Football Hall of Fame. Day 2, and we're fired up to be here for the next couple of hours. Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali are back in the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. We got plenty to do here over the next 2 hours, talking a ton of football. If we've got some time, depending on guests and the way things break over the next couple hours, we may touch on the wrap-up of the Major League Baseball draft, but a lot of football over the next 2 hours. Peter Burns from the SEC Network going to join us here in 10 minutes. Excited to chat with Peter. And then Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, at the end of this hour at 1:45, so fired up for that as well. Log us in the next 2 hours. We will start the same way we start every single day, with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
I want to start with Auburn today. Generally speaking, when you would come to SEC Media Days over the course of the last 2 decades, LSU and Auburn were guaranteed to play, and they don't play this year. Incidentally, LSU doesn't play any of the 4 teams that are making their rounds at SEC Media Day today, which makes it a little bit of a challenge from a local angle, but still, it's college football, it's the SEC. We're going to cover them all. And to me, Auburn is an incredibly interesting case because everyone kind of feels the same way about Auburn. I'll talk about Tennessee a little bit later. I'll talk about Georgia a little bit later, and I feel like there are some differing opinions on what the Vols could or couldn't be and what Georgia's got to do to replace a ton off of both of their units. And there are differing opinions on both of those. Everybody's kind of in lockstep with Auburn that I've talked to, and then I sat in the big ballroom when Hugh Freeze did his Q&A a little bit earlier, and based on the questions that I'm hearing, it feels like everyone's kind of in lockstep. It's like, okay, the first 2 years under Hugh Freeze have been utterly disappointing. Auburn has not gotten out of neutral on the field. Now, you look at off the field in terms of their recruiting rankings and their transfer portal classes, and you're going, well, all that looks really good. Because when you brought in Hugh Freeze, you're thinking it's kind of the same as Gus Malzahn. He just generally recruits better. And that's kind of what he's doing, but he's not winning. And last year, they didn't win. This program is 11-14 over its last 25 games. And that's just unacceptable on the Plains. I know Alabama's been really good, and I know Georgia's been really good, and I know that those are their biggest 2 rivals, and that's a hard block to live on. But you got to be better than 11-14. They lost multiple double-digit leads to Oklahoma and Missouri last year. Oklahoma and Missouri weren't that good last year, and Auburn couldn't get out of its own way. I mean, the Missouri game was just a choke. They missed a chip shot field goal. They got stalled inside the 5-yard line, didn't get any points. They gave up a late touchdown inside 2 minutes to play. It was just awful game management and execution. And that's been the story for Auburn far too often under Hugh Freeze. Last year, they were the worst team in the league in terms of turning the ball over. It was interceptions from Peyton Thorne. It was also fumbles, and they didn't do a good job of taking the ball away either. And so now you look at this Auburn team, and they appear to have restocked the shelves to a degree. You've got an offensive line that brings back 3 interior starters, and you've got transfers to come in on the tackles. At wide receiver, Cam Coleman comes back as one of the most exciting players in the league, and that's a really good place to start on the receiving core, but that's not all that they've got on the receiving core, because if you look on the other side, you've got Eric Singleton, who comes in from Georgia Tech, who was the #1 transfer portal wide receiver in the country. And all that's well and good offensive line. You feel like Hugh Freeze's teams generally can run the ball. Jarquez Hunter's gone, but you've got real talent at wide receiver now. So what's left? Well, it's quarterback. And they bring in Jackson Arnold. And anyone who watched Oklahoma play last year knows how atrocious that group was on offense. That precipitated a coordinator change in the middle of the season. They could not move the ball at all. And Jackson Arnold was piloting the ship a lot of that time. Not all of it, but a lot of that time. And he wasn't very good. He looked confused. He didn't look decisive. He kind of ran around like a high school quarterback because he's got great athleticism. But the thought is that a change of scenery may do him well. And this is a pretty good ecosystem to drop a quarterback into. You've got an offensive line that returns a lot. You've got two of the best wide receivers in the conference. You've got a coach who has scored a lot of points with a lot of quarterbacks that have less ability than Jackson Arnold. The question is, how good is Arnold now that the people around him are significantly better than they were in Norman? And the answer, we don't know. And, like, that's basically everyone's opinion on this Auburn team. It's like, okay, they should be better unless Jackson Arnold is just the bust that we watched last year in Norman. Now, you look at Auburn's schedule, and they've got 3 road games in September against Power 5 teams. That's a rough start to a year. You're at Baylor to start things. Dave Aranda's team got better down the stretch. LSU beat him in the bowl game, but they got better down the stretch. They returned a really good quarterback. So you've got at Baylor to start things. Then you got Ball State. You win that one. South Alabama, you win that one. Then you got to go to Oklahoma and then to A&M in back-to-back weeks. And while I don't know if those are 2 of the top 4 or 5 most talented teams in the conference, they are difficult places to play. Kyle Field is a difficult place to play. Norman is a difficult place to play. And once Auburn completes that month, that first month where they've got 3 Power 5 road games, they play Georgia. And really this boils down to how much water can they tread over the course of that time. If they can finish that at 4-2, say you beat Baylor, beat Ball State, beat South Alabama, lose at Oklahoma, beat A&M, and lose to Georgia, and you're 4-2 through 6 weeks. Well, from that point forward, Auburn can get rolling because you got a home game with Missouri, you go to Arkansas, home Kentucky, at Vanderbilt, Mercer. That stretch from October the 18th to Thanksgiving is very manageable. Auburn could win all those games. And at that point, you set up a monster Iron Bowl no matter what happened, as long as you didn't faceplant right out of the gate. Because you'll be playing better. You'll feel like you've turned a corner. Jackson Arnold's probably playing pretty well. There's a little juice. And you got them coming to Jordan-Hare. But can Auburn get out of its own way early in the season and win some of these games on the road? That's the question. It's not the most difficult schedule you've ever seen. There's no Texas. There's no LSU. There's no Ole Miss. There's no Florida. You do have Alabama. You do have Georgia. But outside of that, it's Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Like, those are manageable games. So Auburn is interesting because it's time for Hugh Freeze's era to start moving in the right direction. 5-7 last year is not going to get it. And we know what happens at Auburn when coaches start to waffle. Because Gus Malzahn would win the league and then come back the next November and be on the hot seat. And finally, they ousted him. They like to get rid of Brian Harsin was there for a minute and a half. They will oust a coach. Like, that's just the way things work on the Plains. Especially when they're looking across the way at their rivals who are winning national championships by the fistful. So it's a big year. And Hugh Freeze met with the media today. I was curious kind of the demeanor he would have. And basically his message today was, I feel like we've got a pretty good team and we should be a lot better. So we'll step aside, take a time out. That's our Genesis Open and Drive. When we come back, Peter Behrens from the SEC Network will join us. We're at SEC Media Days here in Atlanta.
The Hunt Palmer Show. Live from the 2025 SEC Football Media Days. Powered by Parish Construction and Roofing. Enter now for your chance to win $10,000 cash at parishbuilt.com. Our coverage is also presented by Rev and Relief Windows.
Back here, Radio Row, SEC Media Days 2025 in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. Busy day here on this Tuesday. Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas taking their turn at the various microphones. Peter Behrens, yes, SEC Network joins us now. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm burning the hell up. You guys got this is a damn sauna right now.
You've got a sport coat on. You're better dressed than me in my dry fit golf shirt, but it's warm up.
It is a little bit warm.
And the lights here don't probably don't help.
Well, I was going to say, y'all got a better setup than we do here at the SEC Network. I think it's Raul Rivers. That's who puts it together.
That's exactly right. Is there an internal competition in terms of the attire on the set of the SEC Network? You got Roman, you got Jordan, and you're looking dapper with this sport coat today.
Well, Jordan's not fair. Like, in fact, I hope I don't know when his contract is up, but I hope we don't renew him because I'll be honest with you, like, there's nothing like you could wake up in the morning, you're like, dude, this is my best suit. I'm right there, got a brand new haircut, I'm looking good, and then all of a sudden you look in the right before the morning meeting, and like you sit there and you look at Jordan Rodgers, like, you son of a, like, just it's disgusting. Like, so and then Roman. Well, I can't compete with NFL money. I mean, like, that Saints money is a little bit different than SEC Network money. We'll put it that way.
And look, but you're looking good today, and we got a lot to talk about. Tell me, best golf course you played this year. Favorite course you played this year?
Well, you know, I played Yeamans Hall in Charleston Country Club, which was really nice over obviously in Charleston. And who helped me set that up was Shane Beamer.
Oh, okay.
And I called him and I was like, hey, Shane, you got to do me a favor. I want to take my dad on a golf trip and stuff like that. And so we ended up going out there and playing. He goes, you know what? Even after LSU beat us, I'm going to help you out. And I was like, I do appreciate that. And I was like, in all full disclosure, y'all got robbed in that game, but let's not.
That one. I actually went back and watched the highlights of that game in one of my. It's like to prep for this kind of week. That was wild.
It was a weird game. It was
just absolutely nuts with the penalties and the no calls and the turnovers and the 60-yard touchdown runs, and Nussmeier threw for a bajillion yards. That was a wild one, and I think we saw both of those teams yesterday. What do you think about the
real
vibes?
Quick? And I lied to you.
Ooh, come on.
I got an opportunity to go with Brian Sheremy and play Shoal Creek a while back.
Ooh, I hear really good things.
So that whole crew was so much fun, and it was great to hang out with a bunch of LSU guys and enjoy that. But it's been a whirlwind because we're going straight from Hoover, then we go all the way. You know, we got regional, super regionals. We do Omaha, and that was just an absolute flipping blur. And you're off for about 2 weeks.
I was there 13 days.
Trust me, like my credit card might be with Byron Bennett's credit card bill, and that's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing. Competing with him in the baseball beverages department is a tough thing to do,
buddy. But it's a fun week.
It is.
And finally, this is the first time in a long time I felt like LSU has had as much juice as anybody here in the room. More juice than, obviously Tennessee that's here. I mean, more juice than Ole Miss, South Carolina. I mean, this is a team, and I think it sets the tone with not only Garrett Nussmeier as QB1, but, my God, what weeks. I mean, I knew he was just a stud, but if you interview him and you spend any time with that young man, you're like, I'm all in. I don't know what you're selling, but I'm all in.
I was sitting next to Whit Weeks in a little breakout. There was like 8 reporters there asking questions, and one of the women who was not a local Baton Rouge reporter said, are you like this all the time, or is this like for media days? And he was like, oh, no, this is just kind of who I am.
Oh, shucks. Just, we got an opportunity. I don't know if you guys did it yesterday. There was a screening of the Any Given Saturday, the Netflix deal about SEC football, and there's a scene that I don't want to ruin it too much, but in the USC game, he misses a tackle, and then they cut to Whit, and he's like, I just know Brian Kelly's going to be on the sideline, and man, he's going to be mad at me, and he just says it with such a smile, but also kind of a pissed off nature, and I think that's what Blake Baker and this defense needs coming up this year.
I heard the term national championship 3 times before lunch yesterday from the LSU folks. And Brian Kelly said, we are not playing defense well enough to win a national championship. And that's true. We've all sat there and watched it. Do you have confidence that they can do that?
So where I have confidence that, yes, I think they're going to be extremely much better. The best thing that happened to LSU was them not getting Bryce Underwood. I'll go to my grave thinking that until somebody proves me wrong. And the fact that, hey, that money and really the mindset that this was going to be our guy and somebody else could swoop in under LSU and get him, I think it kind of re-kicked and restarted everybody, like from the boosters, from the NIL, from that whole world going, all right, let's trickle down, let's get everything that we need and have that chip on the shoulder. So I think that was good. I think why you can win a national championship at LSU this year is because I believe that if you're in the playoff, you have an opportunity this year. I think it's as wide open as anything's been in a long time.
It looks that way. Ohio State pushed all their chips last year, and a lot of that is gone. And then we just heard from Kirby, and that's a team that has about 4 or 5 starters left. So it feels wide open. Lane and Paul had their deal yesterday on his set.
You want to be real awkward with you and just kind of sit there? I would.
What did you think of his energy yesterday and kind of the state of affairs in Oxford?
I think he's comfortable. I will say this: Austin Simmons, A stud.
Yeah.
And if he stays there 2 years, I don't know. You can't buy Heisman odds for 2 years down the road. I don't believe. If you can, find me. Jimmy Ott maybe has it somewhere. I'm all in on that kid. Defensively, I think they struggle a little bit. But offensively, I mean, this kid is the second coming, if not better than Tua, and that's going to be scary if he continues to develop that way.
If I gave you any quarterback of the 16, you got a head quarterback this season, who would you take?
I'm taking Garrett Nussmeier.
Okay.
I mean, 5 years. I mean, come on. With this crew, I think there's something special here.
There's going to be a Manning walking around. I'm sure I'll find him wherever there's a massive horde of people.
It's getting, it's going to be around here somewhere. I'm not looking forward to it. So.
All right. Well, once you get out of here, I know you got a lot to do. Appreciate you spending some time with us.
See you, bud.
That's Peter Burns. SEC Network, talking a little football here from Radio Row. Actually, good timing there, in and out with Peter, because we do have some news for LSU baseball, and I think this is a good time to kind of shoehorn it in here. LSU just got a transfer, and I'm going to be very candid with you about the breakdown of this transfer. I don't know anything about him right this second. I have his bio up from Grand Canyon. I'm going to read it to you on the air and then draw my wild conclusions as I read stats. Zach York is the addition. He is from Grand Canyon. He is a big physical. Look, my man Zach, based on the pictures, he gets his meals. He's a big dude, 6'2", 295 pounds. He was a junior, hits left-handed, throws right-handed at Grand Canyon. And let's see the statistics here. Okay, over 3 years at Grand Canyon, he's been a .328 hitter. In 2025, this past year, he hit .339 and has some pop in the bat. 32 career home runs over 3 seasons, 91 strikeouts over his career. 122 walks. So that profile makes a lot of sense to me. This is a powerful bat to play first base. And that's something they were looking for. You were never going to get Jared Jones back. It was unlikely that Ethan Fry was going to return. Luis Hernandez is out of eligibility. You start to look around, and I think Seth Dardar can play first base, the transfer from Kansas State. I think Braden Simpson can play first base, the transfer from High Point. They'll compete at second and third as well. And then you've got a high school signee that is going to make it to campus that went undrafted that you're going to bring in at first base. But this is a veteran power bat. I was told entering the draft that they were looking for a portal addition at first base. I didn't know who it was going to be. I didn't have any names, but first base was a position that I was told they were looking for, and this appears to be that addition. Zach York, big first baseman from Grand Canyon who has hit for power. I'll just give you I gave you his 3-year stats. I'll break it down to what he did this past season. .339 at Grand Canyon in 48 games. So he's a .339 hitter. He hit 13 home runs. He drove in 46. His on-base percentage was .447, so 45% on base. His slugging was .632. I try to do some quick math there for an OPS. That is north of 1.07 or so. So that's really good numbers there in a smaller conference at Grand Canyon. We saw Jay Johnson this past year dip into the lower level for his transfers. The ones in his first couple years were Jacob Berry and Thatcher Hurd and Gage Jump and Luke Holman and Tommy White, and these are guys who come from Power 4 programs. This past year, Dickinson from Utah Valley, Luis Hernandez from Indiana State. You went and got Anthony Ianson from UC San Diego, and all these were hits. And it's about evaluation. It's about understanding tools and trusting in the development that LSU has in Baton Rouge, and that's what they're going to look for here with Zach York. So again, I can't claim to have watched any video. I don't know what he did game to game. I'll have to look at some video of his swing and some of the things that I can research on the fly. But I found this out in the last break. We chatted with Peter, and then I'm talking to you about it. So I think this is a good addition. I think this is a skill set that is necessary, because if you look at LSU's team on paper, you don't know how much power Aaron Beatty's going to hit for at catcher. Milam's going to be a 10-12 homer guy, you think. But if Stanfield is back, and Stanfield very well could be back because he wasn't drafted, if he doesn't sign an undrafted free agent deal and comes back, there's no power in that spot. Derek Curiel is not going to be a big power hitter. He may hit 10 home runs if he kind of grows into that, but I think that it's probably safer to suggest he might hit 6. So there are you're missing Fry, you're missing Jones, you're missing Hernandez, you're missing Dickinson. These were very powerful bats for you this past year. Pearson hit some home runs as well, and you're missing all of that. So maybe John Pearson cracks into the starting lineup and hits for some home runs. Dardar has some home run power. Simpson has some home run power. You hope Aaron Beatty grows into that. You hope that Milam swings a powerful bat. But this is a thumper that's probably going to hit probably in the middle of the lineup, maybe just towards the bottom a little bit from Grand Canyon, but I think this makes sense. I can't tell you that I've scouted Zach York extensively, but I understand where they're trying to go with this pickup. So LSU in the transfer portal gets Zach York, first baseman from Grand Canyon, 6'2", 295 from Campbell, California. So that's the baseball update here from Radio Row at SEC Media Days. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors that make this week possible. It's a ton of fun, and we hope that y'all enjoy it as well, but they make it possible. It's Parish Construction and Roofing. You can sign up for your chance to win $10,000 at parishbuilt.com. Also presented by Rev and Relief Windows. That's why we're here in the College Football Hall of Fame. Tennessee's players are down in the ballroom below me. They're answering questions. Josh Heupel just left the podium. The Georgia players have been walking around. Kirby Smart has been here a good bit, and earlier today we heard from the Auburn Tigers and Hugh Freeze. Still waiting for Steve Sarkisian to take his turn at the big podium, and Arch Manning will be around, and there will be a lot of folks following him, I would have to imagine. So we'll keep chugging along here on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Come back with us for more. It's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. Live from the 2025 SEC Football Media Days, powered by Parish Construction and Roofing. Enter now for your chance to win $10,000 cash at parishbuilt.com. Our coverage is also presented by Rev and Relief Windows.
LaBerge in Baton Rouge. UFC 318 is going to be going down, and we're going to have an event there at ESPN Bet. We'll announce our VIP winners, all four of them, coming up at the top of hour number 2, so 30 minutes from right now. We will announce the winners that are going to have a big old time watching UFC 318 at LaBerge coming up on Saturday. We're going to talk to Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, 50 years covering the Southeastern Conference. Got a book coming out, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in our next segment to close out hour number 1. I want to talk about the Vols here in this segment. Last year, at this time, when you're going through the magazines and you're reading the analysis and watching the highlights and looking at the recruiting stars and kind of scouting out what you think about the SEC, you pick teams that you like, you pick teams that you don't really like. And I thought Tennessee last year on paper looked like they were really going to be good. I thought the defense looked really good. I thought they were going to be physical on the offensive line. I thought that Hendon Hooker was a great quarterback 2 years ago, that they had a step down with Joe Milton, but that Nico would be the guy to reignite that high-octane offense. And the defense looked better. And a lot of that happened. They ran the ball exceptionally well last year. They played really good defense. And Nico was okay. He was okay. And so I feel kind of validated in my pick of them preseason. They went 10-2. They made the playoff. And as I do that same exercise with Tennessee this year, I come away with like the exact opposite feeling. I don't like Tennessee on paper at all. Now, their schedule is manageable, and that's a big part about who you are as a team. But when I look at this Tennessee team, everybody's going to go immediately Nico, and the big storyline and all the drama where he's holding out and he's basically holding the collective hostage and he wants the money and he ends up in the portal and nobody really wants him and he ends up at UCLA where he'll founder away in complete anonymity and no one will care. But that's not really the storyline, because it's everything else that has gone into this roster that I think is just as interesting. It just wasn't a circus. Now, you've got 4 offensive linemen that have moved on from the group that helped lead the SEC in rushing. The only one that's back is the Lance Hurd. And this is not sour grapes. I think Lance Hurd's an incredibly high upside as a football player. He didn't have a good year last year. He didn't play very well. But he's back. The other 4 offensive linemen are gone. Dylan Sampson, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, gone. Your replacement for him is a former walk-on. It's Deshaun Bishop. And Squirrel White and Brew McCoy were the top 2 wide receivers, and they're gone. So your offense is basically a shell of itself. You return one starting wide receiver, your tight end, and an offensive lineman. That's it. And you're going to have to overhaul all of that to run Josh Heupel's offense. And then you look at defense. They should still be good. They got 7 starters back of a really good defense. But this caught my eye. And this is just one opinion. This is Lindy's Sports Magazine that I was reading through. We've got others. Phil Steele's got a great magazine. You can talk to a lot of the analysts that are here. And we'll get other people's thoughts on Tennessee as we move forward. I may get Tony Barnhart's here in a few minutes. But you look at Lindy's, and they put together a top 3 SEC teams, first team, second team, third team preseason. Tennessee has 2 players on it total. Jermod McCoy is a first team DB, and Aaron Carter is a third team linebacker. That's it. That's the entirety of the high end of this Tennessee roster. And that's hard to grasp. So if you don't have the folks that made your offense functional last year, and your defense is missing some key pieces, and you don't have a lot of folks that are first and second team preseason, it's just very unproven and very unsettled to me. And so I look at this Tennessee team, and it's like, okay, you go and get a quarterback from Appalachian State. And Joey Aguilar threw for a lot of yards at Appalachian State. He threw for 6,700 and 56 touchdowns in 24 starts. He also turned the ball over a lot at Appalachian State. So what does that tell you about what he might do in the Southeastern Conference? I'm not convinced that they've significantly upgraded. I'm no Nico apologist. I don't think he was a great player. I thought he was an average player. I don't know if they've got an average player here or not. It's a matter of does the skill set translate from the Sun Belt to the SEC? We'll see. Now the schedule is doable here for Tennessee. They open here in Atlanta in what is going to be a really ugly Mercedes-Benz Stadium that night with Syracuse and Tennessee in an all-orange battle. And they'll play that game in Atlanta, and then they got East Tennessee State. And then they play Georgia, which is going to be obviously very difficult, but they get Georgia in Neyland Stadium in September. Then you got some really winnable games, UAB at Mississippi State and Arkansas, before you got to go to Tuscaloosa. And we know that's always a big, big game. Tennessee has beaten Alabama the last 2 times in Neyland. They hadn't won in Bryant-Denny in a bajillion years. So we'll see what they can do in that game. And then your finish is very manageable. At Kentucky, home Oklahoma, home New Mexico State, at Florida, who knows what's going on in Gainesville at that point in late November, and then you got Vanderbilt in the season finale. So there's no Texas. There's no Ole Miss. There's no LSU. It's basically Georgia and Alabama, and then a lot of teams that are going to be picked towards the bottom of the league. Doesn't mean they're going to finish in the bottom of the league. They're going to be picked toward the bottom of the league. So my conflict on Tennessee as I break them down entering the season is like, I don't like the roster much at all, but I do like the schedule. So where does that net out? Because most of the teams you talk about, like you hate the schedule because there's so many good teams in the SEC. Most teams have a brutal look. But in this case, like I'm not 100% convinced that this is a very difficult schedule, relatively speaking, with the SEC. We'll see. But I tend to think this is probably an 8 or 9 win team in Knoxville. I think they lose to Georgia. I think they lose to Alabama. I think they may lose at Florida, and then there's probably another landmine somewhere, whether it's Syracuse, whether it's a home game against Oklahoma. Maybe Vanderbilt clips you at the end of the year. But this is a Tennessee team that has taken a step back, in my opinion. We just heard from Peter Burns in the last segment, and he was like, I mean, LSU's got more juice than just about anybody, and he mentioned directly like Tennessee. And I agree. If you're here in Atlanta, we've talked to a lot of people, whether it's here in the big ballroom or it's in the sports bar after everybody files their last story and turns off the microphone. But not a lot of buzz on Tennessee, and I think it's probably for good reason. I would buy stock today in Tennessee over the next 5 years because I think Josh Heupel is a good coach. I think they've woken up a little bit from a really sleepy, nearly 2 decades, if we're being honest, of the Butch Jones, Derek Dooley, circus that it was. Jeremy Pruitt. They're in better shape than they were there. I don't think this team's got that, but I still think that I like Heupel's offense. I like that there's an identity behind Tennessee, and I think they're going to be a factor a lot of years. They were certainly a factor last year. I don't think they're a factor this year. I think that they could regain that with continuing quality roster management that Heupel will generally put together. I was on Tennessee's side here with the Nico saga. I thought that was disgraceful, the way that family handled that, but that's an opinion. You're certainly free to test the market whenever you want. It's just, I think that leaving Tennessee to go play quarterback in front of 11 people in the Rose Bowl for UCLA, not great, but still it puts Tennessee in a bad spot, and you got to dip down to App State and see if you can snag a quarterback. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not super high on the Vols. Today is Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. Already heard from Hugh Freeze, Kirby Smart, and Josh Heupel. Steve Sarkisian will be next up there on the podium, and so we'll hear from him a little bit later to wrap things up here on this Tuesday. We're chugging along here on Radio Row. Gave you a little bit of baseball update in the last segment. We'll go ahead and put a bow on the Major League Baseball draft in our next segment. We're going to back Tony Barnhart up a couple minutes, and he'll join us to chat at 2 o'clock Central Time, 3 o'clock where I'm sitting right here. So some time to decompress and maybe get into a little bit of baseball here before we dial it back up to football with Tony Barnhart, and then a look at Texas and Georgia in the second hour. So fired up to be here. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with us. We'll step aside, come back, and close out the hour with some baseball talk when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Safety's a big deal when you're purchasing a vehicle. Doesn't matter if you've got big family or it's just you driving around. Safety's important, and Genesis knows that, and that's why every single vehicle on the line, all of them, are an IIHA top safety pick. Sedan, yep. SUV, yep. High-end level, yep. Entry level, yep. All of them. Top safety picks. Some of them top safety picks plus. You'll get behind the wheel of a Genesis. You'll feel the comfort. You'll feel the style. You'll see all the features, bells and whistles, and you'll be treated wonderfully by their awesome staff. Safety is something that you can't really feel when you sit behind the wheel of a car. But just know that they've been tested, and they're among the best and the safest on the road. Go by and see them. Airline at Pico, across from Women's Hospital. Genesis of Baton Rouge. You can check out that entire line at GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
Live from the 2025 SEC Football Media Days, powered by Parish Construction and Roofing. Enter now for your chance to win $10,000 cash at parishbuilt.com. Our coverage is also presented by Rev and Relief Windows.
All right, fast-moving first hour here from Radio Row here in Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks to Peter Burns for jumping aboard. Tony Barnhart going to be with us coming up in 17 minutes. Excited to talk to Tony, who's been at it a while, 50 years covering the Southeastern Conference. Got a book coming out about it, and excited to talk some football with Tony here in 17 minutes. And then after further review, going to be a loaded show for you today as well. So it's been fun. It's a fun start to the week. I know it's a weird deal for us, and I talked about this yesterday on the show. It's weird that when I sat down for my first show of Media Days, LSU's presence was already gone. Now, we talked to them all, and we spent the whole morning doing interviews and getting things ready, and we had plenty of content on the shows and story up at LouisianaSports.net, but it's just interesting. There's no build for the LSU media. You just walked in, they're here, 4 hours later, they're gone. Okay, take with that what you will and handle it for the rest of the week. So it's just a lot of talking about a lot of other teams now, which is fine. I'm excited to dive into this football season, and we're certainly doing that here in Atlanta. But to end this hour, let's put a button on the Major League Baseball draft as it relates to LSU. Let's start with the guys on the team that were drafted. You know, Cade Anderson went 3rd overall to Seattle. Anthony Ianson, 87th to the Red Sox. Ethan Fry is going to sign professionally. He's going to get near $1 million at number 95. Jared Jones, slot value for his selection is a little bit over $200,000 to the Pirates in the 9th round. Jacob Myers waited a little bit longer than I thought he would. He went 5 picks after Jared Jones to the Red Sox in the 9th round. I've skipped over there. Chase Shores, 47th by the Angels. And then 2 more yesterday that were taken. Connor Ware went in the 15th round to the Mets. I do expect that Connor Connor Ware will sign that contract and turn professional. LSU kind of backloaded for Ware in the transfer portal when they went and got those left-handed pitchers in Lockenmeyer and go to Oregon, get Castillo. They've done a good job of adding Ryland Smart from Tennessee. So they've got left-handers, and Connor Ware's likely to move on. And then Cade Woods was drafted in the 10th round by the Atlanta Braves yesterday. So Atlanta will save some money on Cade Woods, who's a senior, and he'll move into their organization. So the guys that did not get drafted who were eligible to do so, Zach Cowan. That is a big deal for LSU. I talked about this last week when we were entering the draft. Cowan is a guy that is not super projectable to the next level. So he may not be a high enough pick to forego. And there's a chance that after a really, really good season that he had, it's easy for us to forget how great he was because there was 3 bad weeks. It was bad in College Station, it was bad in Columbia, it was bad in the regional. And because you had those bad weeks late, you kind of don't realize that before he took the mound in College Station, he was the most dominant relief pitcher in the Southeastern Conference. That is not hyperbole. No one was scoring on him. And I don't know that it's reasonable to expect him to be like that all the time. I think he was just pitching very well at that point. But he is talented enough dude to get a lot of outs in the SEC. And I think now he comes back with an absolute opportunity to be a starting pitcher for this team next year. He proved he could do that at Wofford. It's not some sort of crazy transition. He's started his entire life, and I think he's going to be a starter next year. He, to me, it would just be a perfect number 3 starter who throws a ton of strikes, gets a lot of weak contact, is perfectly capable of getting deep into a game. He's just got Eric Walker written all over him when they're at their best. And Eric Walker at his best as a freshman was awesome, and I think that Zach Cowan can be that as well. A lot of times on Sundays you have guys with big stuff who don't throw strikes or bullpens that are really hurting, and you can see some big scoring totals in those games. Cowan would give LSU a great chance on Sunday games if he is able to win that spot. So that's a big one for LSU to get back. Jaden Newt is going to be a versatile piece to this LSU pitching staff next year. He's coming back. He can start. Hasn't done it yet, but that's a profile that he has. And maybe he's just a long reliever like he was this year. Maybe he's a spot starter on the midweek, or when you get to the NCAA tournament in a tough regional game or something like that. He's got plenty of stuff. 95-mile-an-hour fastball. He threw that changeup really well this year. So Newt is a versatile piece that LSU brings back. And then you go offensively to Chris Stanfield, who did not get drafted. And this was a real possibility. Stanfield does not have a power tool at all, and he doesn't hit the ball the other way really at all. So you've got a guy that's very limited in his profile and what he can bring to a professional organization, and nobody took a pick in a 20-round draft. In a 40-round draft, Chris Stanfield would have gone and signed professionally. But they've shrunk the minor leagues, they've shrunk the draft down to 20 rounds, and nobody wanted to take an outfielder that can't hit for power. So Stanfield comes back, and that's likely going to be a guy that can be a key piece to your outfield. I'm getting a text saying something's going on with Stanfield, so I'm going to try and check that out on Twitter. There's a lot going on here. Okay, he announced he's staying, so that's good. That's what I figured. He could have signed a professional contract. You can sign an undrafted deal just like in football. The guys that are undrafted can sign on and try to make a team. You can do that in baseball. It's a little bit more rare because you got a 20-round draft and all that kind of stuff. But he's announced he's going to come back. So maybe he plays center field. Maybe Curiel moves to center and he goes to left, kind of like Braswell and Milam did a little bit of a switch there. But we'll see. I think Stanfield coming back is a good thing for LSU's offense for sure. I was bummed out that Luis Hernandez did not get drafted. That's a bummer for a kid that came in, played a new position, got some huge hits for LSU, 2 monster homers in the regional that he hit. And then he has obviously the line drive against Arkansas that was a big one. Just a really great contributor to that team, and I was hoping he'd get a more direct path into professional baseball than having to go and try to find an undrafted deal to sign. But he did not get drafted over the weekend, unfortunately, so Luis will have to look around for his next spot. So that's the roster. Now let's look at the high school class. And I'm tempted to just go with the guys that they're going to get, because trying to go through all 17 names is probably a little bit more than we want to do on the radio today. But I will say this. It looks awful when you look at, oh my gosh, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They lost 8 signees to this draft class. Like, that is so many. That's decimating the draft class. And I'm looking going, well, it looks that way, but it's not that bad. You knew this class had a lot of risks, and Jay Johnson's recruiting classes moving forward are going to have a lot of risks. And 10 or 12 years ago, if you took this many risks and you got 8 or 9 guys picked in the draft that weren't going to show up, you were going to have no freshman class, and it was going to be a bad deal for your program that you were going to have to patch hole with JUCO players, and that's not the way you want to run a program. Couldn't do it. Now that you can every offseason go into the transfer portal and just start grabbing guys, it's not that big a deal. So what's most important is that you get high-end players, and LSU got high-end players out of this signing class. William Patrick not getting drafted is a big deal. This is the best athlete in LSU's signing class. He set an event record in the 60-yard sprint. He can throw, run, hit for power, like super athlete. Not necessarily as polished, which is why he didn't get picked early as he would like. But he comes out of Monroe, out of St. Fred's, and he's coming to school. That's huge. Marcus Paz. Tommy John is a junior. High velo fastball pitcher from Texas. The comp I was given was Kason Evans in terms of makeup and velocity and professional stock. And they got him to campus. It's huge. It's a right-handed pitcher. You got a pair of shortstops through, which is a spot you're going to need to fill once Milam moves on after next year, and you lost Mikey Ryan, and your 2 shortstops from the class before that had transferred out. So you were a little thin at shortstop. Jack Ruckert from Catholic did not get drafted, and Ethan Kloss, the shortstop, in the class, is also going to come to school. So you add 2 middle infielders, which is a big deal. Mason Braun, this kid can absolutely crush the baseball. South Bend, Indiana. The reason he was not a high draft pick is because he's only 6 feet tall. If he was 6'4", he'd have been a high pick. But he doesn't have the projectability to go hit 40 big league bombs because he's not very tall. And that may just make him a great college player, and that's what LSU's looking for. So they get Mason Braun through the draft. He'll profile at first base and come in maybe as an opportunity to be a left-handed bat off the bench, or maybe break into the starting lineup on the first team he plays on next year. You've got left-handed pitcher Jonah Ayes. It's very good to get left-handers in. LSU does that with Logan Ayes. Then at junior college, Zion Theopolis as well, the right-handed pitcher, throws a ton of strikes, very pitchable. Not necessarily a huge arm. I thought LSU would get him through. So that's a good thing for the class. If you read my draft preview on LouisianaSports.net or listened to the segment I did on the draft on Thursday of last week, getting ready for it, I think I got them all. I think I pegged the guys that were going to leave. I think I pegged the guys that LSU was hoping to get through the draft. And so because I did that, I'm not telling you that to toot my own horn. I just get stuff wrong constantly. I'm telling you that because that's the expectation entering the draft. This did not go appreciably worse than anyone at LSU thought 7 days ago. It went about exactly how they thought it would go, and they were okay with that. So, yeah, they would have loved it if they could have gotten Miguel Syme to turn down $1 million. They would have loved it if Dean Moss from ING would have fell to them and wanted to improve his stock in college. But they were very well aware that these guys were very potential and even likely signs in some cases. So instead of wringing your hands about the guys that LSU wasn't able to get in this signing class, more importantly, you look at what they were able to get through the draft, and it is very high end. And let's be honest, do you want to bring in a 13-guy signing class where 8 of them don't play and 6 of those transfer the first out? That's not any better. So you want to get the small group that you feel like is really talented and can help, and you plug them in and you work on the next one. And whenever holes fall and things happen, you go to the transfer portal and clean that all up. So I think LSU is in a very good spot in terms of this signing class. We'll find out officially over the next 2 weeks when guys do put pen to paper, and out of curiosity, see what kind of money they're able to sign for. But LSU gets the iffy pieces outside of Ethan Fry back on the roster with Stanfield and Cowett and Newt. And you look at the signing class, they did get some really talented dudes to skip right on through that. So that's fantastic stuff for LSU. And I think a pretty solid weekend. I know it looks terrible on paper. I think it was really a pretty solid weekend for LSU in the Major League Baseball draft. So good deal there for LSU on the diamond. We're here at SEC Media Days on Radio Row. Teams taking their turn today: Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. Still waiting to hear from Steve Sarkisian in the big room. But we got a lot to do in hour number 2. I want to talk to Tony Barnhart coming up after Sports Center. We will certainly do that. Talk about his book and his outlook on the conference this year. We'll certainly talk about the Texas Longhorns in hour 2, as well as the Georgia Bulldogs, 2 of the teams that may be at the top of the conference when we settle this thing in December. We're back after Sports Center on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.